Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 28th. Well, a little bit of a breakdown here as we popped up early in pre-market and then also during the mid-session, but we started to break down as we saw ourselves right here with the cyan moving higher above zero, as well as the orange moving back into that death zone where whatever is leading here, whether it's red or the cyan, when the orange is caught between that zone, it's usually continuation, and we started to see continuation build to the downside. And the checkout had already started its decline. Let's see, we're looking at it right here. Let's see what that is. It was below going into the day, the yellow line, and there we have -8, so really moved significantly below. So we started on the up move here. We needed to get this baby to start going to the positive if it was going to break out. So clearly little end of month action, and you get election and all that. And like I said, if the polls start changing in a way that is adverse to what the market expectation was, you would see a correction. I think you saw the beginnings of that start as far as the news cycle at the beginning of the day, and it exacerbated, and boom, that lock of HRC fading a little bit in the minds of some, whether it's real or not. We knew that would have a reasonable impact. Now the NQ obviously suffered a bigger, people are going to say, well, it's Apple, this, that, and the other, but the reality was it was disproportionately higher than the ES as well as the Dow, and we said there was going to be some equilibrium movement. You can see the big difference here, but even that dip in the NASDAQ is just going to get it closer to where the Dow is in relation to the highs, is what I'm referring to. But you can see that's caught in that mid-zone range. With the DOC, problematic, also lower shakeout. Usual suspects, the euro's going nowhere. I mean, it got oversold. We got the beginning of the orange dip, but without the steel coming down, not happening. And as I've been promising you, well, since all the way back up here, the TLT was going to continue to fade, no question about that. This is happily in the zone. It took forever after this crossover before the steel dip below, and by then it's way late. Usually within 3 or so bars, it should take place, and it didn't happen relatively quickly. It took a long time for it to do like this. I mean, big orange move here, but steel opposite direction, so just kind of sideways trade there. I always said, though, that the pivot here for USO was the green ABM right there, 1116. Still getting a decay, though. We had the higher highs right here on lower shakeout readings, and then that continued to decay. It wasn't a DOC spread, but what happened was you had the meeting of green, red, and cyan all together, and then the cyan starts to move apart, and that's where the weakness spread from. And continue now into the oversold -66. Not horrible, but certainly can extend that decline. Gold's been in a weak run right here, but holding up quite nicely right against that short level. We've had a steady rise in the shakeout. We would look for that to break down, and it's still not above the magenta right here. This is a rose line. That's like at 13.5 written right here. That's usually the beginnings of where we see strength and support that would cause price to increase. So it was the early action going from previous day. We ended up with the dip, came back up, broke down right about here. DOC spread was strong right about that point, and then we cascaded lower. Still working on the adjustments with those, but then we ended up with another break up here at the peak right before we started this whole descent, and that was the breakdown, the shakeout right there. Also had positive extremes, and those got filled pretty quick. And from a 5K standpoint, this was the early market. We were talking about the buy signal that came in over here. Ended up with basically just retesting the lows on higher extreme histogram, and boom, nice pop. But then we got the short signal real early on, and that cascaded lower and ended up with this little dip right here, and it started to move, but then broke right away, and we dipped below the yellow line with the shakeout. Came across for a little bit, but never quite produced anything. And then when it popped right here, it did so under positive extreme. which meant that it was going to come right back, and it did pretty quick. Well, it cascaded lower ever since that point, so it's been a steady rise of the cyan staying above red, going all the way through there. And then we got the orange going back in here just when we were below. You can see that the short algo has really maintained a presence over the long algo for most of the last couple of days. Actually, if I shrink it, we can see that. And that's something to do with the end of the month situation here. But also could be impacted by the fact that, like I said, the poll changes, and I think you're going to see some of that end of month volatility. Plus, it's October. As I was pointing out on the Skype chat, I've noticed a little bit of a decline in some algo activity, and that possibly also will lead to a little bit of drawing volume, which could create some of these little swift drops. Oftentimes they'll get bought back up, but it's just a ebb and flow of market makers moving in and out, some of them wanting to hold. These are realities of market that you're going to get when there are uncertainties, and we certainly have uncertainty at this time. So I would say just be cognizant of it. It doesn't mean that we have to worry about any of the readings that we see. It's just a question of following what is, and that's the easiest way to stay with the trend that we have going. And this particular point with the daily is still, let's put up the daily again, because the bias has been to the long side. Breaking down low below the ABMs and that is problematic. So where we were optimistic before that we were going to reach that 54, things began to change, and this is exactly what happens when they do. And is it enough to impact our daily? Let's look at the blind hawk as well. I know we had that trade from the daily. So here's the blind hawk right here. Let's see, what was the value that we entered in at that? Because it closed out the other trade. This was the only one that took it. It was at 45.26. So that's still not enough to be at 2 ATR to affect that. And there you have it. That was it. Took that trade right at an extreme where we were just getting into overbought category, and rolled over that DOC move right there with the cyan breaking above the green moving lower. It's created a little weakness. That happens. It's okay. I think it'll be short-lived. So only 12 days left, and we can finally be through with all of that uncertainty and then get back to moving higher for the end of the year. Doesn't mean it's not going to be volatile. It's just that's the general bias expectation. And as we get readings that change, we will change with it. But that's where it is currently. As always, though, do look for me on the Stock Twits. Trade well.